Hello, everyone. Welcome to Reiki Radio. I am your host, Yolanda. Happy December. We are almost through 2024. This year has been a blur, but I was recently thinking about the upcoming winter solstice and that time of reflection, really taking time to intentionally pause and examine, how we've learned, how we have grown, what it is we still may be working through and working out. There's just so much that occurs within the 12-month window of time. And a lot of times it can seem like such a blur because we are, constantly striving and aiming for what's next and what's to come. So I really do enjoy those times, especially the seasonal changes that invite us to pause and have a bit of reflection. So hopefully, even with all of the holidays and however you may be ending your year, you are having some time to reflect for yourself. I love the moments of reflection so much that actually this year or for 2025, I am offering a class called Life Chapters where I put together a book that really takes us through monthly reflections so that we are being more present and being very mindful about the way we are interacting with life and the energies that surround us month to month. And so for that class, we only really meet twice live. We will meet on December 29th of this year, and then we meet again at the end of December of 2025. And in between, you just have videos that you will access every single month to support you in writing your own life chapter month to month. So if you're interested in joining me for that, the information, of course, is on my website. There are lots of classes, I believe 10, that are coming up in 2025 that I will be teaching online. So if you want to attend any of those classes and that are all focused on your practice from some lens, be sure to go to the website and make a plan for yourself of what you would like to join me in for next year. Also, those of you who want to join me in the Alchemy Circle, which is a year-long mentoring program that includes being part of the community, and we have live classes every single week. We also have the ongoing online classes throughout the year that I just mentioned. You have automatic enrollment as a member of the Alchemy Circle. So there are a lot of ways for us to be more intentional about our practice. So speaking of that, that's what I really wanted to talk to you about today. I was driving just a few days ago. Every morning I have a morning ritual, a morning drive where I reflect a bit before starting my day. And I had the thought of the different ways. There are so many different ways that we can practice and implement the practices within the system of Reiki into our daily lives. And I, again, was thinking about us being more intentional as we go into this year of practicing in ways that perhaps we haven't practiced before, inviting some new life back into our practice. Because for some of us, we may practice for, a period of time and we feel very connected to our practice. And then for whatever reason, we may fall away from it. We may be distracted by life, or we may just get a little bored, quite frankly, with the way that we have been practicing. And so it can be very helpful to keep life and interest and curiosity in anything that you're practicing. And with that, even consider why you have invited Reiki into your life in the first place, and why this is a point of interest or focus for you, and how it is a benefit for you. Now, I'm sure for all of us, we can list all of the different experiences that we've had through the practice of Reiki. We can acknowledge that when we do take the time for practice, we experience some very interesting shifts. We experience expansion of consciousness. We have just these very cool, interesting kinds of things that occur. And we may even think in the moment, why don't I do this more regularly? But again, we just may not commit ourselves to doing so. Or if we do, it's for a short window of time and then we kind of fall away. So I wanted to have this conversation with you all today to talk about some of the different ways that you can start implementing the practice of Reiki into your life in new ways to keep it fresh, to keep it interesting, but even more importantly, to deepen your relationship to energy, to deepen your relationship to yourself, to your life, and to be more present and conscious and diligent about the way we are doing this work through all expressions. So let's talk about it. I wonder what you're thinking about already. In fact, if you want to chat with me about the podcast, you can always email me. You can download the Energetic Alchemist app. There is a community tab section that you can leave me messages there. Yeah, there's so many ways, but I really do. I would love to know what comes up for you. And think about it. Take some notes if you're not driving. If you're listening to this while you're driving, take some notes when you get to your destination. How can you implement Reiki into your life in new ways? And what would bring some freshness to your practice? Okay, beautiful alchemist. So, one of the first things that was coming up about this was just the whole idea of getting stuck in our routine. I remember when I first started practicing Reiki, I was, very diligent, very excited. And part of it was curiosity. Another part of it was because I was amazed by literally the experiences that I was having. And so I was very diligent with a particular routine of meditating every morning, laying hands on myself, doing self Reiki. And then in time, I started doing sessions. And so I integrated that into what I already had established. So I continued to do morning meditation, laying of hands, and then I incorporated doing sessions for other people. And just by incorporating that one element, it created a significant shift in my understanding of energy work. And I started to experience energy in different ways because working on others had its differences than just working on myself. And so there was a lot of learning and exploration around that. And I had to recognize the ways that when I was working with other people, I would go into a deep meditation, very observant. And I recognized that when I was laying hands on myself, I often had more of an expectation around, am I going to feel something? What am I supposed to feel? So I had a different mindset, basically, working on myself versus working with other people. And so I learned a lot and working on others that helped me even more so in working on myself. So I just, wonder what your practices are, what your routine is now, or what it was in the beginning. And then did you ever deviate away from that? Did you just do the same thing again and again, day after day? And then again, like I said, did it become something that just became kind of boring, or that you just got distracted by life and didn't return? No matter what it is, we do have to be mindful of not getting stuck sometimes in routines or rituals that we cultivate, because then we'll also attach ourselves to these ideas that our practice has to look a certain way. And it is very common when we first take Reiki classes that our teachers may recommend for us a daily routine or practice, right? You may have been recommended to practice Reiki in the morning, meditate in the morning, lay your hands in the morning, make sure that you gasho and, chant the Gokai and all of these different things. Perhaps you were given a way of practicing that was very specific, or perhaps you came up with a way that you felt was right for you. And that's great. I mean, it's good to have some structure because it gives us a roadmap. It gives us something to point to know that this is part of my routine, just as regular as waking up, brushing my teeth, and taking a shower, right? And the diligence and the regularity of practice is what is so important. And with that, it's not so much that we cover every element of practice every day. It doesn't mean that you have to meditate and lay hands on yourself and do sessions for others and do the Gokai and do every single thing every day. And the idea of that, even the thought of that, can be overwhelming. And then that is what often puts people in a state of just deciding not to do anything at all. This kind of reminds me of that quote from Bruce Lee. I can paraphrase. I don't remember the exact quote, but essentially he said, he's not afraid of the opponent who knows 10,000 kicks. He's more concerned with the opponent who has practiced one kick 10,000 times. And so that even brings to our practice. You don't have to put pressure on yourself to do all of the things, but even what is one thing that you can do regularly? Is there one thing that you can commit to as the foundation or the cornerstone of your daily practice? And then when you have opportunities, bring in other elements to kind of keep it fresh and keep it different and keep yourself curious. So my cornerstone, I would say, is meditation. That is the one thing that I absolutely try to accomplish every single day without question. And if I have the opportunity to practice other elements, whatever it may be, then that's a wonderful thing as well. But what is one practice that you can commit to every single day? This doesn't have to take a long amount of time. You can't imagine how beneficial it is just to even meditate for 5 minutes a day. Even if it means waking up 5 minutes earlier, that's not a huge commitment. It's not a huge, ask of whatever your current routine may be. But is there anything that you can commit to daily that is, again, just as necessary to you or as regular as your morning routine of taking a shower, brushing your teeth, these sorts of things? It's really about nurturing that connection to yourself, taking time to have presence, taking time to be in relationship with energy, with Reiki, with divine intelligence. So for me, as time went on, I had a very specific practice at first where I did the same thing every single day, where it was like meditate, lay hands, whatever else. And then as I started studying other modalities, I was trying to, integrate other practices within my routine. And what I found was I had to rotate. So I couldn't do all the things every day. But again, meditation could be every day. And then on the other days, I would choose what to implement, what to practice, what to incorporate. And sometimes it's just based on need. What is it that you are feeling called to? Are there certain days where you feel like it would support you to be very mindful of your breath? Are there certain days where it feels like it would really be beneficial to you to take a moment to just sit and chant and feel the essence of the Gokai? I have a free download. If you are on my newsletter, you have access to it. Or if you're not, just go to my website and download or register for my newsletter, and you'll get access to 22 days of transformation. And essentially, it was something that I put together many years ago when I did realize how important it was for us to have just moments of daily observation, of having this awareness, this presence of mind. And while it's something we talk about all the time, it's really a practice that we have to cultivate. We have to get used to. What does that mean to be present? What does it mean to be an observer of ourselves? And what does it mean to be in relationship with the buffet of options we have under the umbrella of practice? So, with 22 days of transformation, you have access to 22 videos, and each day you only watch one. And I believe they're only like 5 minutes long. But every day you have a singular point of focus that helps you to become more aware of you, more present in your day. Again, you only have one point of focus per day. So it brings you into deeper relationship with different aspects within the arena of energy work, of energetic alchemy. So in the first few days, we even focus on the Reiki principles or the Reiki Gokai. So there's one day where all you're focusing on is the first line, which is just for today. So all that you focus on throughout one singular day is, what does that mean? And what is your experience of just for today? What is your experience of bringing yourself back to the present? What is your experience of acknowledging when you are maybe, daydreaming about the future, or stuck on something in the past, or just scattered where you're not grounded? And then your only point of focus is to remember to engage with that intelligence of being present. So anyway, 22 days of transformation. You can sign up for my newsletter and have free access to that. And it gives you the experience of what a lot of this work is about, what it really means. But in any case, there are lots of different ways to incorporate Reiki practices into our lives. And I've learned that not just through years of practicing on my own, but obviously here on Reiki Radio, I've had conversations with so many incredible teachers and practitioners. And then I've had the opportunity to co-host the Global Reiki Healing Summit for the past 2 or 3 years. And in that, again, I got to interview and have conversations with teachers and healers from around the world. And so I've heard so many different ways that people work with Reiki, that people have learned through Reiki, how Reiki has supported people in their lives. So I just wanted to talk to you about this as we are preparing for a new year. So you can even have some consideration for yourself of, how can I do Reiki in some new ways? So one of the basic things, just like I mentioned before, is just Reiki and meditation in the morning. What that looks like for me, first of all, I guess we have to discuss what you feel like the practice of Reiki is and what that looks like for you. A lot of people think practicing Reiki means only laying hands or working on another person, doing a session, or even just laying hands on yourself. But Reiki in practice could even just be the awareness of being one with all there is as you breathe. Right now, you could be in the practice of Reiki by bringing your awareness into your own body. Take a nice deep inhale in through the nose. And as you exhale, let your shoulders fall and just observe now as you breathe the relationship between your body, your breath. And if you continue to allow yourself to breathe calmly with gentleness, you may start to observe a shift and change in your overall disposition. Not only does the body start to relax, but the mind starts to relax. Tension starts to melt from the shoulders and the back. You start to become aware of the feeling, the sensation, the presence of life force moving through the body just as you breathe. That is a practice. That is an act of presence and awareness. That is being in conscious relationship to your physical vessel and your energetic expression at the same time. And just that simple action, you allow yourself to be in relationship to mind, body, and energy all at the same time. So even in me saying this to you, that didn't even take 5 minutes. But imagine if you gave yourself just a few minutes to simply do that. When you're not driving, when it's safe for you to do so, and you just give yourself a few minutes by yourself to just sit, breathe, and simply observe you. Now, we have a thing with time, and 5 minutes may not seem significant in our minds, but when you consider that we usually go throughout the day without giving any time to being present, we don't give any time to acknowledging our body, our breath, the tension that we're carrying. It makes a big difference when you then shift into giving yourself 5 minutes a day. And that 5 minutes a day, because of what you experience, you may expand it into 10 minutes, 20 minutes, however long you have, because you then can appreciate the effect of why you're doing this thing. So that's another thing, is a lot of times we hear what some great practices may be, and it may sound good, but again, we might not be motivated to really make any change to implement or make time and space for these practices. But once we do it regularly and we start to see the impact, the effect, the benefit, then of course we're going to make room for this thing, right? So our mind starts to shift and change around it. And then it may even help us to reprioritize just naturally because of the difference that it makes. So a practice like that, as simple as it is, it's a really beneficial one, because even if you consciously take 5-10 minutes in the morning to do that, it sets your energy for the day, but it also then helps to train you to return to that state of being throughout the day. So let's say you start your day consciously breathing, just relaxing into yourself, having aware of mind, body, energy. Then as you interact with the day, let's say you bump against some situation that triggers you, you will start to remember, you'll start to build that muscle memory of return to the breath, soften, surrender, allow the mind to calm. So you stop being as reactive as maybe you were in the past. You start retraining yourself, reprogramming yourself. So again, these practices can be very significant, because then they can be used throughout the day as, intertwined as part of just your regular life. So that's a simple one. If you believe that you need to start in a very simplified way. Now, going on a little bit from that, if you're not already practicing hands-on, what if you gave yourself the challenge of doing so? We often come up with many reasons around this as well. Let's be honest, some people get nervous about doing hands-on because of the idea of expectation that we can create around it. We may be worried, will the person feel it? What will their experience be? Will anyone think I'm strange if I offer such a thing, right? So this is where a lot of times, for practitioners who want to practice in this way, we have to also first get comfortable enough to acknowledging and admitting and talking about the fact that this is something that we practice. And we can talk about it from the lens of the benefits for us, right? So if you are someone who does practice what I mentioned before, just simply breathing, observing, taking time to be present, you can then relay that benefit to another person. How useful is it for us to take just a moment of time out of our day to relax? Not necessarily asleep, but to just calm the mind, calm the body, be present with ourselves. And so when we explain energy work in a practical way that people can understand, a lot of people are then more open to the experience and the idea, but also maybe even be more curious about it. And so you can challenge yourself, if you haven't already, to put it out there, to ask, are there friends or family, anyone willing to allow you to practice? And don't have any expectation. Just go in like, I just want to observe. I just want to have the experience. What is it like when I lay hands and just observe and witness the flow of energy for another being? Now, the very cool thing about Reiki and energy work in general, I would say, is starting to even allow yourself to witness how malleable and changeable energy is. So whether you are laying hands or not, you can even just start being an observer of the ways that we interact with energy in our daily lives. So things like start being very consciously aware of when you are sitting alone, what you feel like energetically. And then consciously choose to direct your mind towards the flow of Reiki, towards the opening of the heart, towards the calming of the mind, and notice how your energy does shift and change. Then also be very aware of what it's like when another person enters your space. What does their energy feel like? And are you in such a relationship with your own energy that you can observe and feel and sense another person without matching their energy? Can you have awareness while still managing your own energy? Because what happens is energy, it's like, I remember many, many years ago trying to describe this, and the way it was coming through to describe it was like quantum entanglement. And I didn't even know what that was. I was like, why are these words even coming out of my mouth? I'm making this up. But it is. It's kind of like quantum entanglement. And it does. There is this thing where we try to resonate. Energies will try to match. So it's the same as why we have this very empathic nature where you could be feeling fine and then someone comes, your friend calls and they're crying and they're upset. And then all of a sudden your energy will shift to match, to hold, to resonate with the person who is in their sadness. When instead we can still observe and acknowledge and be in our kindness and our compassion, but instead of matching their frequency or trying to resonate with that, we can stay in a higher lens of having compassion and love and understanding without necessarily bringing our energy down. And then we give them the opportunity to uplift and more so match our frequency and vibration. So, it's really like do you remember the game when we were kids, that game Memory? That image just came to mind. But it really is a matching or harmonizing. We tend to match and harmonize and resonate with environments, with people, with things. We're very energy has us like chameleons in a lot of different ways. But again, we have to start recognizing how that is so. And then also how you can maintain whatever frequency you have cultivated for yourself while still holding space for another and potentially helping them to uplift their frequency to match yours. It doesn't mean matching thought patterns or matching like you have to agree with someone or it just is energetically speaking. So let's say you are feeling not that great and someone comes around you and they are in a good mood and they are showing you love and compassion and kindness, and then your mood starts to shift and change, right? The support of their presence, energetically speaking, helps to uplift and transform the energetic state that you were in prior. So Reiki really works in the same way, and it teaches us all throughout the system that our direction of mind is key. So the more we practice directing our minds towards our own mind body energy and that circulation, that flow, that cultivation of higher frequency, higher intelligence, the more we can hold it and sustain it. And then we're like Reiki in motion, so to speak. And again, I've done podcasts about this over the years, some of the very old ones in the archives you can listen to. But think about that. Like, you can start to be so aware of the texture, the nature of your mind, your thoughts, your emotions, your energy, and then watch how much that has an impact with how you are interacting with people in life and how people respond to your energy, or how you have a tendency to respond to the energies of others, right? There's so much mystery. There's so much to learn. There's so much to understand about Reiki, about energy work, about ourselves. And so again, your practice can look like so many things that keep it interesting and juicy. It can be laying of hands, but it doesn't have to be just that. So again, just going to ask you before we go on, how can you practice in new ways? Are there any ideas coming to mind now of ways you want to kind of experiment with energy work in your practice, or how you want to explore or get to know yourself in energy in new ways? There's so many options available. Now, another thing, when I started in all of this, as we all know, crystals end up being a big part of the conversation. There are plenty of people who do not work with crystals at all. You do not have to incorporate crystals into energy work at all. But there are a lot of people who love working with crystals, and that's with or without Reiki. And I don't remember. I do actually. I do remember my introduction to crystals. It was a teacher who introduced me to crystals, but not necessarily to work with them, just that they all have different points of focus and hold, their own consciousness and energy and this type of thing. And so at that time, I started buying crystals, just whichever ones called to me that seemed to resonate with me. I enjoyed placing them, around my home. And at one point, I even placed some crystals underneath the Reiki table so that when I was working with people, the essence or the energy of the crystals could support the energy work that I was doing. So I have experimented with them over time, but the real big energy experiment with me and crystals was just sitting and holding them. So this is another way, if you're curious, to kind of play with energy, is to allow yourself to tune into the energy of different objects, but especially something like crystals that really does, crystals do have a certain type of frequency, energy, but they're also, I want to say, very individualized. So for example, a lot of people may say, oh, get rose quartz if you want to work with, the heart chakra or love or finding love or these things, right? So there are some generalized ideas around what certain crystals are used for. But even in that generalization, each crystal has its own personality, so to speak, or has its own energetic resonance and expression and information, its own energetic coding that could be dependent on the part of the world, where in earth this crystal came out of, what it has been exposed to, all kinds of things. So I started holding crystals one at a time and just meditating with that. So I would hold a crystal in my hands, close my eyes, and then just tune into the essence of the crystal. I wanted to observe the energy of each individual crystal. And one of the things that I wasn't expecting was really getting feedback from the crystals. I mean, I really did have, there was a period of time where I was pretty diligent about that. And I had some very interesting experiences with having certain images appear, or feeling certain frequencies from different crystals, or just certain downloads coming through when I held certain crystals. So that gave me a whole nother lens or study of energy, recognizing that it's not just us humans, but, everything has or is an expression of energy, of divine intelligence. And so this extended into making me curious about trees, and, just sitting by a tree or touching a tree with my eyes closed and noticing what I felt energetically. There was one time even I went on a hike, and it was an area that had recently been affected by the wildfires in California. And so there were a lot of trees that were dead, that had been uprooted, that had fallen over, that were burnt, all of these things. And on this trail, there was this one boulder. And for whatever reason, I just felt very drawn, very called to putting my hands on this boulder. Sorry, I had to take a sip. And I placed my hands on this boulder, and I just felt this energy, this essence, and it brought tears to my eyes. It kind of felt like almost like this transmission of sadness for what had happened in that area with the wildfires. And then, anyway, I just had this different type of experience and curiosity about how energy is expressed in nature. And so, again, that may be something that you can play with. Maybe you have or haven't, or maybe you could do it more consciously, more intentionally, and just see what your experiences are. Even playing with the Reiki symbols in different ways. A lot of people are taught to use them just in session, but what if you allowed yourself to just connect to the consciousness of each symbol one at a time, and just notice what the essence, the energy, the expression of that symbol feels like within your body, within your being, just by directing your mind towards it, by breathing the essence of the symbol through your body, through your being. If you concentrate on the expression of that symbol as you are holding a crystal, or breathing the expression of that symbol into a glass of water before drinking it, right? There are all these different ways that we can work with Reiki, work with energy, understand the truth of divine intelligence expressed in all forms. So think about it. Another thing, when you think about doing Reiki in new ways, is one, if you haven't practiced on others, as I mentioned, practicing on other people gives you a totally different lens or view or experience. Also, practicing in kaku, which is the remote sessions, practicing remotely gives you a whole nother layer of experiencing Reiki. So most of you know I taught a Reiki class, level 1, level 2, back in September. And part of their homework immediately after class was practicing remote sessions with each other, doing Enkaku over several weeks. And the beauty of it was the experiences that they had, right? So there really was no room for the impossibility of it. Just throw yourself in and see what is it that you actually experience. And I'm sure you all know by now, there's so much in this work that no matter how much you try to explain, you really won't understand unless you have the direct experience. So if you are someone that may not feel confident in practicing remotely, or you're unsure, you question it, the only way you're going to understand it really is to give yourself the opportunity to actually practice. And if you think, who am I going to practice with? Perhaps you can reach out to people that you took your classes with, whoever was in class with you. Reach out and say, do you want to practice this thing together? When I first learned Enkaku, I practiced it a lot on my family, especially my mother, who lives 3,000 miles away from me. And fortunately, she was open to it. And also at the time, she was experiencing back pain. So it was interesting to get her feedback of how it really did have an effect in alleviating her pain. So, again, sometimes we just have to push ourselves to try. A lot of times you can't think of how many times there are things that we don't try just because we haven't said yes to it. We haven't given it the effort. We've gotten stuck in a story. We've told ourselves why we can't instead of showing ourselves how we can. So if that isn't something that you have practiced yet or want to practice more, how can you hold yourself accountable to that, right? Reach out to some friends. Now, another thing, of course, if you've never attended a local Reiki circle, those are quite popular. You can often find Reiki shares in your local community. You can Google them. Different people hold them and facilitate them in different ways. Or if you studied with a teacher locally, perhaps they offer Reiki shares. Some people end up just becoming the facilitator of them because maybe there aren't any in their area. But, you can always, again, reach out to people that you took class with, or, look online locally to see if there are any practitioners that are aware of local Reiki circles or anything like that. And you can even also volunteer. So we hear a lot about volunteering within the Reiki community, but a lot of people don't. And it's usually because they don't, well, some people don't want to, and that's fine. Like, you don't have to if you don't want to, but it's one of those things, again, where you give yourself the experience. Like, you never know what you will learn from new experience. And so if you've never done it before, perhaps at the very least, you can have give yourself an opportunity to do some volunteer work just to see what you learn through that experience, through that exchange. You never know, you may love it. But again, it's one of those things you'll have to look for. You can Google and see in your area, are there hospitals in your area that offer Reiki to patients? A lot of different hospitals do offer Reiki to the patients in a volunteering effort. There are all kinds of programs and people. I can't even tell you. So when I did the Global Reiki Summit, like, for example, where I live in San Diego, I'm aware of people volunteering and offering Reiki in hospitals. I've known of that for years. But when I did the Reiki Summit, I met a woman named Heather McCutcheon who lives in Chicago, and she put together a whole Reiki program to offer Reiki to officers, to the Chicago police. And so she and some other Reiki volunteers, they get together very regularly and they go offer Reiki to the police officers. It's incredible. Most people wouldn't even think of that, right? But it's something that exists in the world now. I met another person during the summit who not only does volunteering for people, I want to say maybe in nursing homes. I know they work with people that are elders, but there are a lot of people who volunteer in, say, hospice care facilities. This person in particular is trying to figure out how to get Reiki offered voluntarily, like within the prison systems, right? So there are so many different ways that people are offering Reiki services, working together as a group, that may interest you. And again, just may be a very cool experience, but you just have to look it up. Some of these things where you may be sitting by yourself thinking like, oh, who am I going to practice with? Or how am I going to do this? Or does this even exist? Is this even possible? It probably already exists. It's probably already possible. And you just have to look and make the connections, make the calls, write the emails, and start interacting more with the community that is there. Now, for some people, I know there really are areas where there isn't much of a Reiki community. And fortunately, now we have the capability of meeting together as community online. And there are a lot of different online Reiki communities available as well that you can find. I know that some people do Reiki circles online. Some people hold Reiki practices online. The alchemy circle that I've created, that's how it started. It started as essentially a Reiki circle online. I started it at the beginning of 2020. And it was at the beginning when, none of us could go anywhere. And I said on the podcast, if you want to join me for the entire month of May, meet me every morning online on Zoom. And every day we'll practice Reiki together. I will lead it. I will guide us through meditation and Reiki practices. And we did. And there was a group of people who took me up on the offer, and we met every single day. And that was the birthing of the Alchemy Circle. So I just say that to say there are so many people, practitioners that you can connect with even online, groups and communities that you can practice with, that you can learn from, that you can have these conversations with. You don't have to feel isolated in your practice at all. And even if you have people that you practice with locally, it's still really cool to be able to connect with people who live all over the place and learn from people, casting a wider net. So don't forget that you have that option as well. There are plenty. You can find them online quite easily. If you want to join me in the Alchemy Circle, you just have to register by, I believe, December 29th. So that's on my website. But all of that aside, I hope your mind is really going, having some ideas and possibilities of how you might start practicing Reiki in new ways for yourself, starting now or starting next year. But another thing is it can be random. A lot of times people neglect their practice because, again, they may say like, oh, I don't know where I'll fit it in. I don't have time. It can be random. Okay. Like even sometimes where you are sitting and watching TV, you could take a moment, pause the television, turn it off, and give yourself a moment instead to redirect your attention towards you. Bring it in. Sometimes we're so conditioned just scrolling on our phones. Oh, we don't have time, but we have like 10, 20 minutes that get lost on social media, right? That could have been 5, 10, 20 minutes that you got lost in yourself. It can be so random. So anytime you notice that you have like these like random moments throughout the day where your mind is starting to wander, or you feel like you're about to direct yourself towards some sort of distraction, also remember that you have an option of bringing your awareness into yourself, and then just breathe, observe, direct your mind towards Reiki. Direct your mind towards the symbols. Direct your mind towards the Gokai. Bring your hands into Gasho. Be intentional. That moment, as short as it may be, can create significant shifts. Think about this. At the beginning of this conversation, when I told you to just take a minute, take an inhale, exhale, let your shoulders fall, did you notice a shift in your body? Did you notice a shift in your being? It only took a moment. So again, we have to get out of this story or this idea that we don't have time. We have to get out of the story or this expectation that our practice has to be within a block of time that is like an hour or more long. Instead, start recognizing how powerful it can be where you randomly throughout the day give yourself an opportunity to just redirect and return to you and just breathe with Reiki. Yeah. Change your mind, change your life. So, one of the last things, and again, this is something I've talked about in the past several times, but it does teach us a lot. And again, this is expanding your idea of what the practice of Reiki is. It's not just laying of hands, that's part of the practice. But another very powerful practice is intentionally starting to see with your Reiki mind, seeing with your Reiki eyes. So when you are interacting with the world, when you're driving, when you are looking out at everyone and everything around you, intentionally breathing your awareness in, acknowledging the fact that you are literally witnessing the divine expressed in all forms. So you don't look at a tree and just look at a tree. You look at a tree as an expression of divine intelligence, the wisdom of the tree, the design of a tree, its roots extending down into the earth, the strength of its trunk, the beauty, the expression of the branches, and then the leaves, or even the bareness of the trees at this time. Whatever it is, look from your Reiki mind, from that mind that is expanded, from that mind, that lens of recognizing one with all there is, recognizing that we are all, that all things are an expression of divine intelligence, right? How does that start to change you? How does that give a different flavor to your life experience and expression? And then start looking at people that way. It can be easier to look at your pets and the plants and the trees and all of these things that don't upset you from that lens. But what about people? What if you start challenging yourself to look at people, and the moment you recognize your mind is going into an assumption, a judgment, a criticism, instead return to your breath and allow yourself to lift into that Reiki mind, that Reiki vision, recognizing that what you are seeing before you is another expression of divine intelligence, that this human, this person, this being is also an expression of divine intelligence. Now that can take more work because, well, we all know there are many reasons of what may challenge us with that. But what if you start giving yourself the challenge? What if you recognize all of the barriers and the resistance you have towards seeing people in this higher way? Now, I would even pose this challenge to you. We all say we want to see the world differently. We want to see more kindness in the world. We wish there was more peace in the world. We want all this greatness in our world. But if we refuse to function or to see or to try to lift our own awareness into that realm of intelligence, how could we expect anyone or anything else to do it? You want peace in the world, you want kindness in the world, you have to be willing to give it yourself, yeah? So even the practice of seeing people in light, seeing people as light, at least having the recognition that divine intelligence is present in all. Now, whether we as individuals recognize the divine within ourselves or not is a whole nother story. But the divine is there anyway. So that is a huge practice within itself. And again, if you want help with like these kinds of practices, I also recommend, again, the 22 Days of Transformation. I think it helps with kind of easing into that kind of practice. Just sign up for my newsletter and you'll have free access to that. Now, one of the last couple of things, I would say to infuse Reiki or energy work into other practices that you may have. Like, obviously, I read oracle cards. I created an oracle deck. So I don't just shuffle and lay out cards. I'm very intentional and mindful with having a short meditation. I breathe my awareness into the presence of Reiki expressing as and through me. And I infuse and feel that connection of light into the deck, into the cards, so that again, I'm bringing my mindset back to that space of one, um, about to reveal the expression of whatever it is I'm doing the card reading for. But I infuse energy work into everything, not just a Reiki session, so to speak, but I direct my mind towards Reiki before I eat the food I'm about to eat. I infuse and direct my mind towards Reiki before I'm going to drink my water. I do it before I have a conversation with clients and friends and my family for that matter. You can really start to consciously recognize the presence of divine intelligence in all that you do, in every practice, every interaction, every conversation. So, again, how can you start practicing Reiki in new ways? The last thing I wanted to share with you, and actually there's a whole podcast episode upcoming about this, is feng shui. Now, many of you will remember Angie Cho and Laura Morris. They are the founders of Mindful Design School, and they've been on the podcast, I want to say once a year for the past couple of years, where they've spoken to us about feng shui, and also they usually come on to give us a forecast about the year of whichever animal is going to be present for the Lunar New Year. So right now we're in the year of the dragon, and by the end of January we will transition into the year of the snake, and I believe they will come and talk to us about that as well. But we have an upcoming episode with them talking about their new book, which is called Mindful Living, a guide to the everyday magic of feng shui. Now, last year, Angie wrote a book about feng shui as well, and I was blown away by the parallels between feng shui and energy work as we know it. Now, for a lot of us, we think of feng shui as just like decor, or, like the flow, the energy of the room. I don't know. I didn't realize the depth and the detail and the symbolism and, working with the five elements, like all of the aspects of feng shui that really do not just mirror, but are in relationship with so much of what we learn through energy work in general. So it really is, it's like another form of energy work in a lot of ways. But they wrote this new book together, and I've read it. And again, I was blown away by how much we can understand about energy work from a new lens, just by understanding energy work from the lens of feng shui. So it goes back to why I tell you I love studying so many different things. It's not that I practice everything that I study, but when I study different modalities and different systems and philosophies, it gives me a different lens of even how I understand Reiki, or how I just understand energetic alchemy in general. So it's really quite amazing what we can come to learn, know, and understand through the study of other systems. And for that matter, through the study of different lineages, even just within Reiki. So I hope that you will enjoy the conversation that I have with Angie and Laura that will be coming up very soon. Also think of it from that lens of what it is you can learn about energy through their system, their lineage of feng shui that they practice. And if you want to join me in the Alchemy Circle, the clock is ticking. We will start on December 29th. And really looking forward to this year of energetic alchemy and having fun and exploring and doing Reiki in all kinds of ways with you. But don't forget everything that I brought up today, whether you're joining me in the Alchemy Circle or not, have consideration for yourself. How can you practice Reiki in new ways? What are some new ways you can implement understanding energy work and really making it a regular part of your life? What is it that you are trying to understand, trying to balance, trying to heal? What is it that you are trying to live in expression? And how can you bring in these different bits of practice to support you in obtaining that wisdom and understanding? All right, lovers. That was a lot, but I hope that it supports you in your path and in your way. I look forward to sharing more here with you on the podcast. Of course, if I think you will have the episode with Angie. Yeah, that'll be before the holiday. But in any case, I hope that you all do have wonderful holidays. If you do celebrate any of them, don't forget to always check out what's new on my website, theenergeticalchemist.com. Don't forget to sign up for the newsletter. It's free and you get access to 22 days of transformation as well as creating with the moon and stars. I will see you lovelies very soon. Remember to always journey in love.